Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Living by the Word Ministries presentation of the Bible Information Brokers. We get into the second half of the broadcast tonight, a live presentation, an opportunity for you to call in or email us your questions. You can call in by dialing right now, toll free, 1-888-995-KKLA, 1-888-995-5552. You can call in right now. Eric is ready to receive your phone call. He's one of our teammates, along with Professor Craig Hawkins, PCH, and Brian Allen. We're here for you. As you call in, as you send email questions, this broadcast will go. I have a plethora of questions I can ask and probably take up about 4 or 5 hour broadcast. But this is for you to call in with your open, honest questions. We want to deal with those questions. Also, you can send us email questions by simply going to our website at BibleInfoBrokers.com. Excuse me. Now, folks, I mentioned something about the Special Olympics in Seattle. They're coming up right around July the 1st to the 6th, and I mentioned something also about Teen Day, our Teen Day broadcasting. We have a special thing with Living by the Word Ministries through our Family Serving Family, sort of our outsourced ministry where we touch the community that we're in. And we've been teaching teens how to do radio and journalism and things like that, interviewing people through the various activities that we have. And this is our second opportunity to go to the Special Olympics. We did it so in Los Angeles a few years ago. You get press credentials just like the big-time press people, and you actually get to participate in interviewing various people. But I just want to know if anybody out there in our listening audience has anyone that's going to participate in the Special Olympics, that you send us an email, send it especially to me. Go to our website at Bible Info Brokers, say contact us, and put in there easy. I have someone I know is going to be in Seattle, and if you can contact them and interview them, that'll be great. It's just to make a connection with the ministry and also with the Special Olympians out there. We've got an opportunity to talk to all Olympians all over the world, but we like to know those people that are connected to our radio broadcast, to our listeners. So that's just a special event that we'll be going to this year. I may spend a few days out there in Seattle and do some interviews like we did last time when we were out here in Los Angeles. Just a great privilege and opportunity. One of the things that we do with Living by the Word Ministries, especially through our Family Serving Family. Now, Brian, we're going to get back to these phone calls where people can call in at 1-888-995-5552, and also those email questions coming through our Bible Info Brokers website. Did you have an email question you want to deal with before we get to our brother Dan right now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
It's from our friend Reverend Phil. He says, this past week has brought out all of the pros and cons about immigration. It is bringing division among the nation and Christians. Some believe the government should be compassionate and give sanctuary to those seeking a better life in America. Others believe that the government must control the borders and who comes into America. Unfortunately, if you agree with the president, you'll find yourself facing ridicule, as Sarah Sanders found out when she was asked to leave a restaurant because the owner felt her working for President Trump was against her morals and did not want her in her business. What should be the Christian response to these issues? Because everybody has opinions and complaints, but no solutions.
Well, PCH, I'm going to let you and Brian deal with this as I gather my thoughts, because I was just talking with someone about the whole idea about this and how, when you get so much propaganda going on in the news. I won't call it fake news. I'll just call it propaganda, which news puts out. And you don't have a strong biblical worldview, then you can get kind of tied up into this whole political thing based upon whatever messages you are hearing out there in the news media. So, PCH and Brian, if you have an opinion or thoughts on this situation for Reverend Phil, let's hear it.
Brian?
It's interesting because, this is a free country that we live in, and because someone exercises their free right to believe what they want to believe in insofar as who they want as president, and to go to the extremes to say, well, you can't eat in my restaurant because you work or you voted for Mr. Trump. I just think it's just getting personally, I think it's just so. I think it's. I guess ridiculous is the only word that I could think of. And so I mean, Darryl, you're shaking your head like.
Well, look, man. I showed you the book I was reading, going through this book, PCH, and it's called Rebuilding civilization on the Bible, and is parenthetically proclaiming the truth on 24 controversial issues. Remember, we was mentioning Pelagianism earlier, and you opened up to one of the chapters. That's one of the issues that it deals with as far as rebuilding the Bible on that. And Craig, there's this group that did that thing at Wittenberg last year for the 500th year of the Reformation movement. I think I seen you some information on it, and I was just looking at the book. And again, I can't say I agree or disagree with it yet, but the whole idea about the subject matter rebuilding civilization on the Bible, the bottom line point for me is that there is no, even with God, there is no such thing as open borders, as it were, whereby you're just going to eliminate the rule of law when there is a law on the books.
Well, here's another thing that is kind of, how can I say, it's kind of like acting like you did when you were a little kid, like taking your ball and running. You can't play with me anymore. You can't play with my ball. I'm taking it and going home. We have a president that was voted in legally, okay, through the system.
You mean the electoral system? No, anyway, I will start going.
Well, however he does it, however it did it, I think it was like, hey, it was smart. But my point is this, because a group lost and their person didn't get in, now they're whining like little kids to a certain extent and saying that, well, since your guys won, I'm going to take my ball home and you can't play anymore. And it's sad because, do I think, Donald Trump has done everything right? No, I don't. Okay. But there's certain things I feel he's done right and he's done okay with. But it's like we have a system here in place in the United States, and the president won through that system. Now that he won, it's like that's not good enough. It's like I said, you got to take your ball and go home, and you can't. I'm not gonna let you play anymore.
Well, I'm gonna say this. I'm making a food item, Craig. You might appreciate this. My food analogy is this: I'm not gonna get caught up in the gumbo and become part of a big gumbo pot or of a goulash thing. We used to call it goulash back in the day, which basically spaghetti and a whole bunch of things, and it looked like kind of gumbo, but it's from a spaghetti base. But I am going to say this in regards to the rule of law that we have. We have laws on the book, and then people think, in my opinion, that we have three different the judiciary, the executive, and the legislative who makes the laws. So we got some laws on the books that need to be looked at. And the way they're doing this whole thing in regards to the border, and they say immigrants versus saying what it really is, which is illegal immigration. We're not talking about immigrants because we all immigrants of some sort, because we weren't our ancestors weren't really American unless you were Native American here, and then where did they come from before that? I mean, I don't know. So my bottom line to all this stuff is that there's a rule of law. We should follow the rules, understand the various division of the laws and of our country, how we purposely have these divisions so that it wouldn't be a dictatorship, there wouldn't be no kingdom and things like that. So we have those three branches of government that's supposed to work hand in hand for the people, right? Because we put them in office anyway. So we should have a lot to say, but we should have a lot to say predicated upon what's on the books now. And if we don't like that, then change it within the rules of law.
Well, another thing, Daryl, too, is that people are coming into the country illegally.
That's why I said it's not about immigration, it's about illegal immigration.
Exactly. And so, okay, do we just let everybody who wants to come in? Here's something I thought about the other day. How come just about anybody from another country can come into the United States, buy property, buy land, and own it, okay? And, the joke is Americans don't own most of the United States anymore. But you can't go to Mexico, I don't believe, or China, and you can't go there and you can buy a house, but you can't buy the land, you can't buy the... How come we can't go to other countries and do the same thing?
Well, I know you can't go to Liberia because I had the privilege of talking to the vice president of Liberia when I was there, and he told me it's in our Constitution that you cannot own land in Liberia unless you are either native Liberian, which was the original Liberians, or you are of a Negroid of ethnicity. That's right in their Constitution. So
it's like,
So, PCH, we're saying much on this. Craig, I know you have a couple of things you want to say, but not many on this. But speak, if you will, sir.
Yeah, I try to avoid this in
I
some
know.
sense because it's such an emotional issue. There's a lot of emotions and whatnot, but there are some concerns that have to be mentioned, so I'm going to jump in. So, number one, people say, well, we're a nation of immigrants and whatever. Well, okay, that's true, but we haven't been hit by ISIS in a while. There hasn't been some major acts of terrorism in America, but we can't forget that. So there is the issue of the right to secure our borders.
Vetting.
And so if you say, look, people came from Germany and France, yeah, but they weren't coming over here as terrorists to bomb us and to otherwise harm us. So we have to be careful. We have actually known they've caught people actually from the Middle East trying to come through Mexico and what have you. By the way, Brian, you are correct. If you illegally go through Mexico, they catch you, throw you out and/or jail time, as with most countries. Mexico doesn't have a anybody can come through policy, but they want us. We're a safety valve for them to let people come here, and they even encourage that. So when you talk about original immigrants, the situations are different. They're not the same. And I think that we need to be careful about that. Number two, there's some caricature. There's a lot of nonsense going on. Look at Time Magazine. They put Trump, and they put this little girl,
Right.
basically the idea she was separated from this poor little girl crying.
Propaganda.
What a big, mean guy Trump is. They had to come back and retract that and admit that girl was not separated because the actual photographers had to tell them she was not separated from her parents. That's a misrepresentation. Number three, by the way, I would say actually the law, go back to the Obama administration and earlier, the courts mandated that the families be separated. Why? Because it was to protect the children. You can't just put them in with people who are otherwise being held criminally.
Right.
I'm not saying everybody's an immigrant who enters illegally is a felon in the sense of, going to commit other crimes, but some of them do, and you can't have children with them. So this was done out of necessity to protect the children. The courts mandated that. People need to stop and look the law up, not just blame the current president. By the way, number three, I know Christians who are literally being persecuted for their life, and they can't get into America. So,
Talking about
one thing I
asylum.
talk about really the issue of asylum,
Yes.
and that is where one is being, for example, persecuted in terms of their life, for example. And I know literally of actual cases of people from various Middle Eastern countries who can't get into America. The State Department turned them down, who are literally it's a matter of life and death. So people need to be a little more consistent about this. Because people want to come here, sure, but next point, it's unfair to those who do it legally, those who wait and go through and become naturalized, become U.S. citizens through the process. You're basically giving it. It's like people who want to cut in line on the freeway, who don't want to wait with everybody else. Oh no, I'm special. I'm important. I get to go to the front of the line. You all dummies, you all waited, but I don't have to. So it's not fair to those who do follow the rule of law, who do go through this. So that's an issue as well. And at any rate, another point here is that there have been oh boy.
It's okay. You're getting
Well,
there.
anyway,
You're getting
those
there.
are I wrote some notes. I wrote them so small now I can hardly read them. So
You and me
anyway,
both.
the point is, those are about 5-6 major points I just gave. That there needs to be a little more thinking here on this. We have a right to secure our borders. Look, there are people who've told us it's in their writings. Their goal is to infiltrate America and to eventually disrupt and literally eventually overthrow our government. And for example, some, not all, some want to institute Sharia and tell us how we should run our nation. Look, you can believe what you want, but if you don't like it here, go back to where you came from. If everything else is so great in all these other countries, then go back there. Now, I know in this case I'm mixing some different groups here, but some people say they're trying to come here. Then they need to do it through the legal process, or at least go through the process of seeking asylum. There's an actual process in order to do that. And, most countries you can't own land. You can lease it at best for 99 years if you're not a citizen, as you pointed out. This is the case with most countries. Furthermore, we give citizenship to people who are born here even illegally. And we've done that, and I think that's an issue as well. So it's not a question of not being compassionate, but it's also a question of, can we take in the whole world? And the other issue is it fair to those who do it legally? And the other issue is we have a right to secure our borders. Wait till the next big terrorism event, God forbid, that when it happens in America, then this pushes us to the forefront again. We can use our emotions. They have a place, but I don't like it when people do the appeal to emotions and try to bypass reasoning and sound thought process. And so I think these matters need to be carefully considered. Let me just give one final example, if you will. So I try to help the poor, and part of the money my wife and I tithe and give to ministries and organizations in the church and whatnot. We try to help people who are less fortunate. I want to have compassion on them. But if I gave away the bulk of my money to people who really even genuinely need it, I wouldn't be able to provide for my family. There's a point in time you have to say, how much do you expect me to do? There's a point of, and so there needs to be, and the Bible doesn't just say give money
indiscriminately
to everybody. It says you have to vet them and make sure that those who can work and don't, then they don't get anything.
Exactly.
We help those who are genuinely in need and help people, give them a hand up, if you will. But that all needs to be taken care of, and not just, this is so emotionally charged right now. It's disgusting.
Well, PCH and Brian, the emotionalism, you're going to get that in any subject dealing with the politics of it. My issue is when you get right down to it, when people are taking advantage of the loopholes in our laws and then trying to make a point. When you're so bold, I mean, it's like being so bold and saying, look, I just robbed your house, but let me tell you, I robbed your house because you're not helping feed the poor. And here I'm on TV saying, I just got through robbing your house and taking all the food out your refrigerator because you have more than what you need. And then being able, and what am I supposed to do with that when you're going to be right in my face telling me you're illegal, telling me you're breaking the law? And, first you were hiding out. I mean, that's showing some kind of signs of respect far as I'm concerned. But when you're going to simply sit up here and then touch into the loopholes of the law and the very lawmakers, knowing they made these laws, knowing that what the court ruled and things like that, and then you don't give the proper news. That's what I was talking about from the beginning, the propaganda. If you're going to listen to news, at least get the argument on both sides. Like we talk about here, Craig, when we give examples of various people have different thoughts on things within Christendom. We say, hey, honest, decent, good-thinking Christians have disagreements on some very important issues of the Bible. But same thing with life. At least get a balanced view and hear both sides of any argument if there's two sides or even more, so that you can come with some kind of intelligence instead of being so emotionally charged about an issue that causes nothing but more problems piled upon it because you're being more emotional about it, not being intelligent about it whatsoever.
So, we should be compassionate, but we need to be reasoned and principled in its application.
Let's reason together.
And how we do that. And I've got way more to say, but I don't want to take up time to do it right now. But
right.
People sometimes, they'll say, now, I'm white. And they'll say, well, you have white privilege. And I'm like, you know what? College, I was straight A'ing. I had financial need. I couldn't get a scholarship. I got some schools I didn't get admitted to, law schools. When I beat people out, I had a higher GPA and a higher LSAT score. And I would say, because I'm the white male. So this only goes so far with me. I feel I've been on the other side of discrimination.
Well, if I didn't look as black as I look, Craig, I would call on my Scottish and Irish side so that I may be able to utilize my white privilege, but sometimes they don't let me do that.
I worked almost full time all through college. I had to pay. Trust me, I had the student debt from 15 years of college university life, and I'm paying for that. I paid it myself. Now you can say God did it for me, but look, so I'm just. Some say you're a hard case. Say because I worked. I busted. I worked 2 and 3 jobs and went to school full time. I couldn't get a scholarship. And I had straight A's. So I want to be compassionate to people, but I've also had to work awfully hard in life. And so I'm just think, and the Bible does talk about that there are helping people who really are in need.
And like the widows.
No fault of their own, even sometimes it is their fault. But there's a point of time where you say, you know what, there's a cutoff. Paul gives very clear guidelines, like who to admit on giving, assistance to elderly, and so on and so forth. So
and the widows.
Anyway.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, we can go on with this. I mean, I have much more I can say, and Brian's bleeding over towards the mic, chomping at the bits, but we're going to go ahead and go back to the phone calls and deal with any email questions we have. But folks, if you want to participate in the broadcast, we're almost into the final quarter. Boy, this time flies by so fast. But you can dial right now. Eric is ready to receive your phone call at 1-888-995-KKLA, 1-888-995-5552. Go ahead and give a call in. We saw some people that called in and we dropped off. If you want to call in, we have some open lines. Do so, 1-888-995-5552. Or our website is BibleInfoBrokers.com. Let's go to our good friend Dan in South Bay, who's been holding on so patiently. Brother Dan, how you doing, sir?
Hello, gentlemen.
How are you, sir?
Hey, Dan.
Hanging in there.
Good.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, Dan.
Hello, Craig.
Yeah, good.
Oh,
Well,
we got
did we
carryover
wake you
from
up?
last week. Sorry?
Did we wake
I'm
you up
sorry?
there? You got a big yawn going on over there.
No, yeah.
All
I
right,
was
good.
kind of clearing my throat.
Very good.
Last week we had carryover. You wanted me to call back on prevenient grace, Craig. It kind of ties into the previous caller.
Yes, it does. I
What
thought of
you were talking about?
With Tom, yeah, with Tom.
Yes, and maybe to help him, you got two scriptures. He was quoting, "No man can come to me except the Father which hath sent me draw him." But I like to tie that to what Jesus said about, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me."
Mm-hmm.
So first God draws you to Jesus, and then Jesus gets you to the Father, but you can't get to the Father without him. So then we go into the prevenient grace, and where we kind of ended was at prevenient grace versus irresistible grace. Because I quoted that scripture about no man come to the Father, which hath sent me, unless he draws him. So, and I told you that a Calvinist told me that being drawn is like a bucket being drawn from the well. It has no choice. And you kind of, though you're a monergist, you kind of, wait a minute, we got some will in there somewhere. So there's a fine line in here in between the two, and prevenient only means that it pre-exists or comes before. And so there is grace before, but it's where they take this prevenient grace to into doctrine.
PCH, can you give us like a sort of a nice bow and tie, a nice gift package on tying this stuff all together, and we're listening to our listening audience, and you may have to stretch your brains on this one a little taste, but it'd be a good thing to do. PCH, can you just put a nice package together for us and give it?
I don't know about that.
Right.
This is going to get a little deep before it gets cleared up.
Okay.
Because I need to deal with some key words here, some arguments. So we started last week, prevenient grace, literally the grace that goes before. This is in particular an Armenian concept that was accepted as well by Roman Catholicism, and Wesley, for example, held this, and others. And so we're talking about, it is related to the call earlier. You're absolutely right. And indeed, Dan, I remember our talk last week, and I was thinking of Tom when he was talking. I was thinking of you. And so now let's jump into this. So we'll try to tie it together, but this is going to take until next week. But let me get going on this. So here's the deal. So we have this passage. Do you want to read it one more time, Dan? John 6:44.
No man can come to me except the Father which hath sent me draw him.
Right. And so Calvinists in particular will say, well, look, this word means to drag, like as to drag a net with fish in it, or to draw water, or otherwise to violently assail somebody and drag them into jail or court even, or what have you. And so they say, see, so there's no will here. There's no volition. This is God doing it. You have no choice. And then they'll reference, for example, James 2:6 as well. But that's not really accurate. They need to be careful. That's not good scholarship. And
let me jump in, Craig, where Jesus said, "You didn't come to me; I came looking for you." Now, when he came to Peter and those guys, he came looking for them. They didn't come to him, yet they chose to follow him.
He said after he said, "Follow me." After he said it, though.
Right. So here's the deal.
Fine.
Yeah, they did, and so I'm going to need to get some other passages. Well, yeah, but we need to let's deal with this. Keep the text in front of us, though.
Go ahead,
this
Craig.
is where you got to know the original languages, and this is where people mess around and don't know what they're doing. Now, I'm not upset that people have the view, but they need to be careful and not stretch the language and say things that are not true. So there's a number of words for drag or draw. There's at least a half dozen, but the two key ones are suro, S-U-R-O, and helko. Helko is spelled either, and there's no H in Greek, but you put a rough breathing mark on an E. But at any rate, so it's H-E-L-E, Oh, let me get my Greek dictionary back out in front of me. Sorry, here. So I don't misspell it. And then I'm gonna quote Trench, the great Greek scholar, on this issue. And I can use Kittles as well. I've gone through Kittles on this. Years ago, I spent time going through this. So the key word is suro, S-U-R-O, or Helko. It can be spelled either H-E-L-K-U-O or H-E-L-K-O. Those are two variants. That's transliterated, literally from the Greek. Okay, so, but here's the point. So the word suro always does seem to have the idea of a dragging, of a drawing of something, and that the thing or the object has no choice. And it's often done violently or forcibly, if you will. And that would be, again, James 2:6 and some other passages. So the word suro, if the word suro was used here in John 6:44, I'd say they're right. They are absolutely on the money. That's what the word means. That's how it's used. But the word is there in John 6:44 is not that. It's Helko. And Helko can have that strong usage. It can have just as strong usage as suro, but it often doesn't. So, for example, instead of James 2:6, you find the word used, for example, in James 1:14. Helko, it says, but each one, when he is tempted by his own evil desire, he's dragged away and enticed. Now, you might say, well, but it says dragged away. Well, that's the English translation. But think about it. When you're tempted to sin, we were talking about this earlier. Do you have no choice? Can you not sin? Are you so enticed by sin and by the world, the flesh, and the devil that you have no choice? Clearly, that's not what the word means there. That would contradict the rest of their theology. And the word uses Helko. Also, I do need to point out, for example, now, of course, the Old Testament, the Tanakh, was written in Hebrew and a smidgen, 2 verses in Jeremiah and a chapter and a half-ish in Daniel in Aramaic. But the bulk of it is written in Hebrew. But when the Septuagint, the Greek translation of it was done, for example, in Jeremiah 31:13, they used the word for the following translation. They used Helko. It says, "With loving kindness have I drawn thee." That's from Jeremiah 31:3. So God says of Israel, "With loving kindness I have drawn thee," and it's Helko. Now, loving kindness, there's no idea of violent dragging or forcibly making somebody do something. So let me, now, having said that, so here's the issue. One more time, if the word suro was used in John 6:44, end of argument, that's what the word means, that's how it's pretty much exclusively used, to the best of my knowledge, argument over. They're absolutely right. But that's not the word is Helko. It can mean that, but just as often it means something else. It means, as in Jeremiah 31:3 and the Septuagint, as in James 1:14 and many other passages. So let me quote Trench here. If you don't know, Trench was a phenomenal Greek scholar in the day. He wrote, among many works, called Synonyms on the New Testament, and he compares words. And in one of the sections, he compares suro and Helko. And he says, and I'll quote him in part, "These words differ, and the difference between them is not theologically unimportant. We best represent this difference in English when we render," he uses the infinitive of suro, "to drag or to draw. And so in this word is our drag. There lies always the notion of force." And he gives a bunch of examples from Plutarch and so on and so forth outside of the Bible. Okay? So he talks about that. He says, but in the case with Helko, if you will, in the infinitive, the notion of force or violence does not of necessity lie. It may be there in some cases, but not of a necessity. And in many cases, it's clearly not there. And so he goes through. So Trench, and I have to say, one of my favorite theologians, who I have some disagreements with, but I really respect him, used this passage and basically insinuated it was suro, and he was referencing Kittle's Theological Dictionary of the New Testament, and I looked the reference up, and that's not true. Kittle's makes the same distinction and says, so here, it's context it tells you. So this idea that the word means to drag, to draw, and has no idea, it's always compulsion. The object or person in question never has any say in the matter. They are forcibly drawn or dragged, literally, or at least minimally forcibly drawn, taken, is simply not true, according to the study of the words. You have to consult other theological matters. So this is why it's still an open question. Translation, John 6:44, and the use of "unless the Father draw him." I'm arguing clearly that the text does say, no doubt about it, that the Father has to draw you, or you can't come to him, to God. But whether it's this forcible draw, or it is this wooing, it is this, we would use the term to cajole, or to woo, to prompt, to invite, is open because of the word huko has all those range of meaning. You can't just cite the passage and say, this proves that. So people who do that are either simply, they don't know Greek, or they're not careful with the Greek language, or they're being, and I don't think this is the case, I want to be careful, but otherwise you're disingenuous, because this is not what the text says. That's why we need to be, that's why I'm a stickler on being careful, on doing your homework, on doing your research, that these are significant matters. So the question I'm going to argue is still open-ended, at least among the monergists. Let me translate that. So the two main monergistic camps, which bring the monos, alone, only, or one, the word monos, and ergon, the word for work or energy. God alone does the work, gives the energy for salvation, as opposed to synergism, to cooperate with, to work with God, are basically the Calvinists, the various schools of Calvinism, and of Lutheranism. Those are the two big, major monergistic camps. I'm going to argue that debate is still wide open between those two camps. Now, I love and appreciate many of my Arminian brothers and sisters. That's not my perspective. I don't believe the Bible teaches that, with all due respect. There are godly, intelligent people who hold that. I respectfully disagree with them. I'm in the monergist camp, but I'm going to argue the debate is still viable between, or should I say among, because there's different camps even among Lutherans and Calvinists. It's still a viable debate among Lutherans and Calvinists. That's where I am on this issue.
Other than that, you don't have much to say about it, right?
Yeah, don't have much to say. Haven't done my homework. People should know when I wax elephant, it's generally because I've done my homework. You can disagree with me, but you've got to go to the scholarship. You can't just blow it off.
Right.
And I'm appealing to the original languages in context. And you have to be careful when you say, well, the word means this, because most Greek words have what's called a range of meanings called a semantic field. So it's like saying ram. And people have heard this, I know, many times, but I'll say it again. This simple little three-letter English word, you don't know what it means until I give you the context and the full context. Do I mean random access memory? Do I mean the football team, or the whole team, an individual player? Do I mean the verb to ram something? Do I mean the truck? Do I mean dot, 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 dot? You don't know until I give you the context. So it is with Greek and Hebrew words.
Really appreciate that. Of course, we're not going to settle this whole issue tonight, like you said, and I think that's a good little piece for people to take and pontificate upon.
So I definitely, again, rounded up along with our talk with Tom earlier, I believe it is true. We don't go looking for God. He comes looking for us. I'm with Augustine on this one. I do not hold certainly to Pelagianism, and nor do I hold to semi-Pelagianism. My view would be Augustinian on this issue. But it is, I would argue, an undetermined view. It is a house debate among the brethren, the brothers and sisters, in particular, in this case, in my view, among the Calvinists and the Lutherans.
Okay. Hey, Dan, appreciate it, brother. Appreciate your call.
Well, that's
if
what
you want, call me next week, and I'll give you the exact reference in Kittle, and you can look it up yourself. I never ask people to believe me because I say it. I ask them to accept what I say because it squares with Scripture, and I give them robust biblical argumentation, sound argumentation to support the view I espouse, or that we give.
I'm already in your camp, Craig. It's just the context of it, and the whole context, the whole Bible rightly divided. When you look up, when it says meek, it really is better translated tamed. We're gentled. We're not grabbed and beaten into submission. God, as you said, I like the term when you said wooing us. How he gets us to, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the word woo, the idea of wooing, or to there's some other words that have a much softer feel. Yeah, those are how the word hilko is used in many contexts.
Well, they say I looked at the hilko word you mentioned, Craig, and it does talk about by leading and impelling, sort of a inward draw sort of that wooing aspect of it. It's not separated from the person, but at the same time, the person doesn't start it up. It's almost like the Lord starts it up, and then then brings you on home.
Right, and so
yes.
All right, last thoughts, gentlemen. Last thoughts, real quick. We got to go to these other callers.
well, people can and should look it up.
Yes.
If you know Greek, it's epsilon, right? Lambda, chi, upsilon, and omega, and that's the other spelling. Of course, would be epsilon, rough breathing mark, lambda, kappa, and omega. So, anyways, look it up, folks.
There we go.
Don't take my word for it.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
All right.
Formed in our heart by faith.
Amen. Amen. All right.
Thanks, Dan.
Hey, appreciate
Love you, brother.
it. Hey, Brian, listen, Dan reminded me that we need to let the people know and share in the grace of giving and how they can participate in that aspect as far as the ministry is concerned. Let the people know how they can give so we can get back to these other callers and also give the opportunity for them to send us email questions. Let me get the number right quick again, 1-888-995-5552. Eric's ready to receive the call. Go to our website, BibleInfoBroker.com, BibleInfoBrokers.com.
Well, it's just the website Easy just gave, BibleInfoBrokers.com. Click on the link that says support and donate, and you can give that way, or just go to our website. You can go to LBTW P.O. Box, we'll mail it to LBTW P.O. Box 90477, Los Angeles, California 9009, Box 90477, Los Angeles, California 9009.
Folks, even though we talk fast and when it comes down to the giving area, we're not trying to de-emphasize giving, because you do have a blessed privilege to participate and share what God has given you, how He bless you. We ask you to send what you do have, not what you don't have. We're not asking you to take away from the church that you go to. Don't go in debt for us, but we're asking you to consider what God has blessed you with. If you count this ministry worthy of continuing on as we have for the last 20 plus years, then we ask that you would participate in that giving. Do not take the fact that we only say it maybe once or twice in a broadcast that it's not serious and we don't need your financial help. So we appreciate that in advance. Let's go back to the phone calls, and we're going to go to Los Angeles and talk to Devon. I believe I'm saying your name right. Is that Devon or Devon?
It's Devon.
Devon, very good. Devon, what's your question for tonight?
Well, I don't have a question. First of all, I'd like to make a statement on something you guys were just talking about.
Well, before you make that statement, how do I know what it is? If I'm going to be able to approve it or not? So I'm going to give you a chance, and I'm going to put my hand on this button just in case I don't approve of your statement. But go ahead and make a quick statement.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything that's out.
Well, we don't know that, but go ahead, Devon.
No, I understand that. I understand it, but I don't think we're going to, going to mess up God's. I'm not calling to be profane or anything like that.
I got you, Devon. That's just something I'd say to people, let them know that, that's just the type of broadcast we have. That's why we do questions and answers as far as the comments.
Right.
Go right ahead.
Well, first thing I wanted to say concerning what you guys just said, when we talked about God drawing people and this sort of thing, I wanted to say that God didn't create free will to be a puppeteer and infringe on personal volition and free will. The Lord's Prayer makes it clear that God's will must be invited through human initiative in order to be conducted on earth. This is why Jesus invited his disciples to this model prayer, may your kingdom come, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. He drops the bombshell that if God is going to come and do anything on earth, it's got to be, through human initiative, that we don't have to pray for God's will to be done in heaven, because it's as that your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, because God's will is already automatically going to be done in heaven. But in order for God's will to be extended in his plan and purposes to be extended, he uses conduits through his people.
Okay, now, Devon, let me do this to you. Because of that, now let me get to your question.
I just wanted to drop that.
No, I got you. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't have me drop you. But no, I'm just kidding with you. Go ahead. Give me your question, Devon.
But there's no question. I wanted to comment.
You just want to make that comment. Okay, so based on that comment, PCH, do you have any counter to his comment, or do you have any amen or oh no or whatever it is to his comment? Since we can do that sort of a comment, open forum question.
I appreciate his perspective,
yes.
And he's given some arguments, but there's a whole lot more. And I'm just going to refrain right now because I've spent a fair amount of time on this with the caller. So, no, I appreciate his points. I'm very aware of those type of arguments, but there are arguments on the other side as well.
Exactly. Exactly.
that we have to address. And so, but that's where iron sharpens iron, so I appreciate that, and I'll just hold off to another time. But thanks, Devon. Appreciate that.
Really appreciate that, my brother. Now, you got a privilege that not many people get. So I've never seen your name up here before, and I like that name, Devon, anyway. So that's why I gave you that blessed privilege. All right, my brother?
But may I ask a question?
Well, now you're trying to get a question in there. Ain't that Craig? See how you do? See what I give him an inch, how they take a yard. Real quick question, Devon. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's hard to have these type of formats if they're supposed to be for the edification of the body of Christ.
Of course it is, but we're only on limited time in the subject matter that you just commented on. We just spend an inordinate amount of time on. That's what I'm saying that for. So that's what my job is, to keep this broadcast moving.
I sat here on hold listening for quite a while, and there was no limits there. But I see that I'm being pushed.
No, sir. Now, see, now, oh, easy. I have to say this to you. I explained to you that we spend an inordinate amount of time on the subject matter. And so that's what I said. This is an open forum. We try to get as many different subject matters as we can, not just one that would dominate the broadcast. And unfortunately, what your comment was on something that we already spent an inordinate amount of time on, nothing to do with Devon whatsoever.
Yeah, but my original comments were about what we were talking about concerning immigration and so forth, and that's what I was trying to get to. Actually, I just
and now see, now you have another comment. Now we're not going to have that for this particular time, but if you want to give us a call back next week and you can formulate a question in regards to that, then we can talk about that immigration question.
Okay.
And that's in respect to the other callers and listeners as well.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right.
I can do the drive-through, man.
Don't let me lose you. Give us a call back next week, okay? Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Devon. Now, see, PCH, when OEZ try to do his little job there, sometimes I get hassled, but I have thick skin. So let's go back to the phone calls and deal with it.
Let me just say this
go
quickly. Devon can come back another time. It sounds like he's a fairly new caller with us.
Sure.
We can only spend so much time.
Right.
And it is for the edification of the body, but we can't possibly exhaust every topic every time we're on, but that's why we pick it up. Look, Dan had a call back this week from last week.
No, this is about the fifth week. This is about the fifth week.
Here. We only can get so much in, but we do mention primarily, we're not primarily a comment program. We're here to teach. We allow people to do that. We allow them to ask questions, and even questions where they're clearly disagreeing with us.
Sure.
Because we believe iron sharpens iron. But, there's just, the reality is we're not in heaven, let me put it that way. And we don't have infinite amount of time. We're outside of time. So we've got to put some limits on it. And, again, one last time, even Dan had a call back from last week. He's got to call
this is
back
about the
one
fifth
more
week.
time
This is the fifth week.
to get the Parthenian shot.
Look, Dan's called back about the fifth week on the particular subject matter we're dealing with, and he understands. And I want not only Devon, but also listening audience to know, OEZ is not trying to hassle anybody. It's just what Craig said. It's just what I had said to Devon. We do not want to take a show and use it as a subject matter unless we are predetermined that we're going to use that time for a subject matter. And we spent a whole lot of time with Tom, with Dan, and also with Devon's comment on what he had just said. Then he want to get into the immigrations. But see, we have a gentleman by the name of Jason from Los Angeles that might want to talk about the issue of immigrations that we had spoke about earlier from Phil's email. So, all that being said, let's go to Los Angeles and talk with Jason. Jason, thanks for holding on and calling in.
Hi, how are you? First of all, I want to say that I am not perfect. Nobody is. I know that. I'm a Christian. I've listened to you guys for a while. When it comes to, and I try not to call in, I just try to listen. But when you guys veer off into politics, it does sort of irk me a bit. And I came in on the tail end of it, I fully admit. But what I heard the pastor say was that that we have to respect the laws, and and there's a time when people have to be cut off, and that I hear you. But then when the other gentleman said that we have to listen to all sides, we have to hear all sides. And the only side I'm hearing is the conservative side on this radio show. And I just want to say the vast majority, and because I do listen to everything, but from what I can tell, the vast majority of the people that are coming over here from the South America are people that are legitimately fleeing violence. Now, I'm certain that there might be some terrorists among folks and everything else. But the vast majority are fleeing legitimate violence. And they're coming to this country because this country is apparently the milk and honey. Now,
Wait. I'm sorry. You said apparently milk and honey?
this country is apparently the milk and honey to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Okay,
what it told
okay,
me.
go
I
right, go right,
don't
go ahead,
understand why
Jason.
you're stopping me there.
No, go ahead.
So, so my I lost my train of thought. So when you talk about hearing both sides of it, I didn't hear that side.
Well, let me
you guys were
interrupt, Jason. I
explaining
need to interrupt you right quick on that part because I'm the one who mentioned about hearing the both sides. And if you didn't catch the beginning of my comment about when people are going to talk about a subject matter, I wasn't saying that we were giving both sides right now. I'm saying that when you're going to talk to somebody about the various issues that, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, or whatever it is like that, and even in subject matters in Christianity, I mentioned that they are more than one side to issues. And I'm saying then that you're going to have a conversation about it and have an intelligent conversation about it, then you would do that. I wasn't purporting to give both sides on this broadcast. I was using that as a thumbnail to use
And I
in the
understand
future.
that, but you got to understand when a statement is made like that, it's going to strike people differently.
Okay.
And it's going to make them want to call and give another point of view.
Well, sure.
Because as part of the Christian body, I'd like to have other folks hear the other side.
Okay, but let me respond to that, and I'll let you respond again. First of all, I constantly hear the other side. I hear it every channel I'm on, so it's all over. It's almost ubiquitous. So that's number one.
But are
number
people hearing it
two
here?
Hold on, Jason. Go ahead.
Hold on. What do you mean here? Do you mean this program or this station? We don't control the station.
I'm hearing on your program. On your program.
We're not done with the issue yet. But the mere fact we let you on to give the other side is that we want to do that.
And I appreciate that.
And so I'm simply responding. Daryl brought it up. I responded to that. And so I'm not even trying to rebut what you're saying, but I need to go after one statement that I will rebut is you say occasionally we veer off into politics. Look, there's no veering off on politics from my perspective. Politics is an extension of my Christianity.
Absolutely.
Now, look, I don't think that necessarily means people have to be a Republican, Democrat, or Libertarian, or Independent, or what have you. But I do not accept the bifurcation of, well, there's my Christianity, my religion, and then there's my politics. They flow into each other. Now, godly and intelligent Christians can disagree on that, and I'm all for that dialogue, so you'll never hear me say you've got to be Libertarian or Independent or what have you here. But I do not accept, based upon my years of study of the Bible, of this idea, well, politics is separate. We are Caesar in this case as a representative form of government, and so I believe these questions are completely legitimate. So I'm
you misunderstood my point. I said occasionally when you guys veer off into politics,
no, how could I not
what gets me to want to respond.
Jason, hold on.
Right.
Jason.
Right. I think you should go into politics. I think
you
should go
said
into politics.
Yeah, you said we veered off as though we're scaring from it. Jason, you did use the word. Hold on, Jason. You did use the word veer off, and when you use that word veer off, that says to me that somehow we're trying to shuck the thing and just not even touch it.
So I'm responding to that because it's either you or others that sent us an email.
That's not how I meant it.
Hold on, Jason. Hold on, Jason. I put you on hold so he can finish his statement.
Let me just finish this one comment, and then I'll let you respond. So I have no trouble with you presenting another side, and we're allowing that. But my point is, you used the phrase "veered off." That is a loaded phrase. If you don't know that, you need to stop and think about it. Or we've been getting emails, people who say the same thing. Oh, you deal with politics. You really upset me. And I don't accept that distinction. Now, if you're not making that, I would say poor choice of words. But now I want to get off that and let you finish your thought to get to the real issue. So go ahead, Jason. Sorry about that.
Well, I think we did cover the issue. And the other one is the white privilege remark. I don't know. I don't know what you faced. I'm sure you faced a lot. But I would certainly hope that you would still understand that by virtue of your color, no matter what you faced, you have white privilege.
Well,
and,
I'm going to take exception
you may not
with
have
that.
seen it. You may not have
Oh,
seen
my
it.
goodness.
Okay, hold on, Jason.
I didn't
Jason.
see it when it came to scholarship.
Jason.
I beat people out grade-wise, financially-wise, and LSAT score, and I did not get into schools. What is that? So let me say this. I deal with human rights. I deal with human trafficking. Racism is a problem. I'm not saying there's not racism in the church, But simply to say, in fact, a related phrase is now Christian privilege, and now colleges are clamping down on so-called Christian privilege. And so to me, that type of, and I'm going to call it this, simplistic, platitudinal type of analysis I find reprehensible and offensive.
That's not loaded?
So, oh, sure it's loaded. You're kidding me? Oh. That'd be like saying, using some other comment in a different sense. So I'm not denying racism. My brother and I have had conversations even on this program. I'm not saying there's other issues, and I'm not saying whites never have advantages. I'm not saying that. But just to use the blanket term of white privilege, I find it, I'm telling you what, I find it offensive. If you've known my life and how hard I've had to work, some people say, well, you have white privilege. I'm like, are you serious? I'd be happy to give up my white privilege for some other type of privilege, because it certainly hasn't helped me very much. You can say, well, you've gotten ahead. Yeah, because I've worked like a madman, and by the grace of God. If that's white privilege, so I know there's more to this, but I'm just not going to accept the phrase white privilege.
Point. Yeah, and again, with, the whole idea of the concept, it sounds like, Jason, if I'm not mistaken, that it's like, I'm not saying that you're saying this, but when people talk in that general term, it's almost like you have to accept this hook, line, and sinker, and then the anomalies, which you want to allude that Craig may be just an anomaly, or that, the anomalies are just those few that did not take advantage of their white privilege, so shame on them almost. It's almost implied there. I'm not saying you said it, but I've heard it in many, many different arguments and discussions I've had with many people.
But certainly you're bringing up important issues.
Very important issues. That's why we got you.
And this discussion definitely needs to be continued, and I certainly want to invite you back where we can give you some time to talk about this and to develop this more, because certainly we haven't presented all facets of this. There's a lot more to be said.
Right.
And I don't want to sound like there is no such thing as whites having some advantages.
Exactly.
At times that definitely is true, but I just don't accept the term as a blanket term any more than I accept that all other people are X, Y, and Z. That's all.
Well, what we don't have is the privilege, gentlemen, Jason, PCH, Brian, all of us. We don't have the privilege of time. We have 1 minute left to finish this broadcast. So, Jason, I invite you to give us a call back, my brother, next week, if you would. Be so kind.
All right. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, brother.
Have a good night.
Appreciate you, brother. PCH, Brian, 20 seconds each.
Test all things, hold fast to that, which is good.
Yeah, we've got to get beyond soundbite.
Yes.
We need to spend time. We do need to hear each other. We need to dialogue. Iron sharpens iron. We need to hear sides and show compassion and sympathy. But I have a hard time with blanket type statements where we just include everything or what have you. We need to do thorough analysis and be fair and sympathetic to people from different perspectives. Well,
we call it bringing balance to an unbalanced world.
Yeah, look, and some people I'm going to understand. I even see a message from our screener that a gentleman called back and said, we're not being fair, we make up the rules as we go. Well, here's one of the rules of a broadcast that we have been dealing with for 20 plus years, that we are the custodians of this broadcast, and I happen to be in a position where I have to do what I believe to make the broadcast flow the way we already pre-described. So if that's making up rules as we go, unfortunately, it's not. But, I mean, for the man's thought. But I would say this, that anybody would call it with opposing views. We're not, look, we open to that stuff. But this format that we have is a format we described. And I would just simply ask people to understand, if you want to get on the radio or something, you have something that we can come on your broadcast on and have all the time that you afford us, we'd be more than happy to share that time with you also. So on behalf of the Living by the Word Ministries Bible Information Brokers team, my name is Daryl Easy D. Fulton, Mama Grace and Big Daddy's baby boy, saying thank you, Craig, thank you, Brian, thank you, Eric, thank you, Wilbur. And we'll be back next week, God willing, with more of the Bible Information Brokers. God bless you. Until next week.